Hello, good people. I am so terribly sorry. I am going live at this particular moment. I'm a little bit late getting started. Um, I was just on the phone with the local authorities trying to get a hold of somebody because the neighbors' dogs were going at each other, and it sounded like they were trying to kill each other. Is what it sounded like, and it sounded like perhaps one of them won the fight, and it's gotten quiet over there since. And trying to see if maybe somebody can drive by and have a look and see if they're okay. But they can't do a wellness check on animals apparently. They could do a wellness check on him, but I saw him walking around just fine. Oh, somebody says the ads. Okay, well, okay. If I'm a little bit late, you got to see the ads. Sorry about that. So anyway, I was a little distracted. Um, just trying to see if somebody could come by, and apparently, yeah, if a dog's in trouble, then I guess they're just out of luck. Hmm. No, y'all aren't early. I am late, oddly enough. Yeah, terribly sorry about that. All right, let me see here. All right, we got exit. Yes, I want to exit emergency mode. I tell you, it is disappointing, right? We have this system that's set up that really can't do anything to help anyone or anything. It's just sad. All right, give me a second here. I think maybe you could find a way to put it to do some sort of good use, and it did just nothing. All righty. Animal control, yeah, that's about it. But animal control doesn't do emergency response or anything like that. So it would be just like, pardon me, my hair's just popping out. I need to get a brush or a comb or something. Um, it's just frustrating. I tell you what. It looks terrible. Oh, that looked terrible. I need to go take a shower and wash my hair. Oh, it looks horrible. What? Yeah, exactly. One of the dogs might need a vet, and it might be something where he needs a vet like sooner rather than later. The neighbor doesn't appear to be conscious. Maybe he took something to knock himself out. Maybe he's in trouble. I don't know. But I heard these dogs carrying on. I just had to go look. Um, anyway, sorry about the drama. We were supposed to be talking about something else entirely tonight, and I'm supposed to be working on. As you can see, let me get out of the way so you can have a look at the room behind me. Does it look a little bit different? Maybe not quite so cluttered anymore. Let me get up and walk around here. Look, space. I have space. There is space. I can move around. La, 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 la. And of course, there's bookshelves. You can see the bookshelves. Okay. I've been getting through these and going through them. We have so many books. Some of them are duplications. Some of them are books that have information that's repeated in other places. So duplications of information, actually duplication of titles in some cases. And so we've been going through all of those books and sort of weeding through them. Yeah, and to help us with some of these tasks, I went ahead and got myself a little red wagon for adults. So we got one of these. This is actually supposed to be used out there in the garden, but I figured I'd go ahead and assemble it here inside the house because it was kind of chilly out, and we'll get to using it out there to move some wood chips and so on and so forth around. Ooh, somebody might actually go ahead and roll out on just to check to see if these animals are okay. That might be. I heard sirens. If I do need to go talk to some of you guys know I'm fine. Everything's fine. It's just we heard noises over there. It sounded bad. Um, I don't think it was them attacking the human. I think the dogs got into it. And I don't know. Maybe one of the dogs lost the fight for good. It sounded really bad, guys. It sounded really bad. So I called the cops, and I don't usually do that, but just I can't sit by and hear that and not do anything. And it's private property. I can't go over there and break up a dog fight. Um, so anyway, yay. Mary said I need to get a bicycle chain and lock for it. Yeah. Mm, lots of missing animals. All right. So The power of myth. So what I want to talk tonight about a couple things. I want to talk about, for one, the advantage of um, embracing a myth as a myth. And in other words, not trying to engage with a story as a historical story that you're trying to make sense of in the context of modern life or existence, but instead accepting that you're not going to understand this story in the literal sense and looking instead at it for the lessons that it can teach. So we have a lot of wonderful stories that are part of our common mythology that that have great lessons to impart upon us. And of course, one of that's passed down. I got reminded of this earlier today by watching an interesting video where there's a a mystic Catholic. If you can imagine that, a mystic Catholic priest. He's Irish, and he was talking about some of the Celtic myth. And he mentioned the Arthurian legend, and whenever he did, it triggered a thought in my mind, and I thought about that and said, I've long since given up the thought that there was actually a real King Arthur, right? If he existed, there's a certain time period where this figure would have existed based upon the stories, and the stories are sort of adaptive. And the Arthurian legend is built upon just this volume of stories of this time of chivalry and knights, this code of ethics, the feudal era, and also this time period as it goes on, where England is blending the Christian influences that the Romans brought in with the native influences of the Celts, those influences, and then later it gets repeated on with the formation of England as a state. Whenever it's Alfred trying to unite the Britons as the Danes are coming in, and you have these blending of cultures that are coming together with different ideas, and they're trying to come together peacefully in some sense. So Alfred and his close heirs are trying to do a similar thing with the Danes that seemingly Arthur had accomplished with the Christians and the native Celts. All right, that's kind of the themology that's working here. Of course, a lot of these stories we know they couldn't possibly be true, and a lot of them are drawn from stories about the court of Charlemagne, Charles the Great in France. Um, but they evoke this concept or this idea of a golden age of chivalry, and we see in our mind's eye when we try to envision, yes, those cheesy romantic novels of the chivalric age, these lovely scenes, these beautiful gardens, of course, and people living in a way that is well, elevated above the rabble. So shall we say? There's this romantic image that we get of Camelot. John H. Stevenson, hello. Yep, we're diving into the literary stuff tonight, just a little bit, little minor dive into the literary stuff. I was moving books around. I was looking at these books and listening to various weird stuff, as I'm inclined to do. And I heard that mention of Arthur, and I had a realization regarding the Round Table. And it's kind of there and obvious if you think about it. It is. It's kind of there and obvious if you think. It's like, oh yeah, how could I possibly miss this? But you have to once again think of it as embracing a myth, and then now what lesson can you learn from this? What we always think about the Round Table as being this stone table. It's circular, and people sit around the stone table, and you're going to have maybe a dozen or so knights or peers like Charlemagne had that are going to be here, and they all pledge their sacred honor, and they're swearing to serve the king, and this is wonderful. But Arthur is supposed to be in these stories. He is the prototype king. The idea, right? The idea of Arthur, the idea of Camelot, And the idea of justice and honor is supposed to be suffusing the entire society through all of its members in the course of the dissemination of these myths and legends. So you have, through the influence of culture, the story is influencing culture. You have people that crave justice. They crave this sort of genteel life. They crave these things. They want to see them manifest in the world around them, and this pushes society in a certain direction. Okie dokie. Are any of them true? Who knows? But it's how culture shapes, as opposed to there are different ways we shape our society, right? We have our religious views that shape our society, our spiritual views, whether they're religious or not, they shape society, and we have the intellectual conversation, the laws and rules of civilization that make us do the things that we do, and then we have culture that pulls on the heartstrings in other ways and helps influence our societies. The way our garden grows, so to speak, right? How it's pruned, how it's watered. What are you cultivating in your garden if your garden is your civilization? If you want to have that Camelot golden age civilization with this grand garden that spills out beyond the boundaries of just my property, your property, there, everywhere you look is beauty. You want to have this sort of experience. It's going to take more than just a little bit of wishful thinking. Somebody's actually going to have to buckle down and do some of the work. In come the peers, right? The peers are the knights. These are the people that see the vision that Arthur has put forward and go, I see this world that you're pitching, where every man is equal, where there is justice and equality, and those who have the might, the power, use that for good purpose instead of selfish purpose, and the civilization can flourish. And of course, they kneel and they swear the oath of fealty, and they become knights of the Round Table. All right. The story goes on. There are things that happen. Yeah, we're missing a John. How many Johns do we have here? John Conrad. Well, he might be just listening in and too busy to chit chat. Anyway, we have these ideals. Where was I going with this? I lost my train of thought because I was reading text. Okay. Everybody wants to contribute, belong to this kingdom, right? This chivalric empire, this wonderful creation. Let me take a look at something. I put a poll up here, and I want to look and see what it's currently at. Let me look at live chat real quick. Let me see. All right, what do we have? We got 9 votes here. Okay. Oh wow, it is a dead heat right here. Okay, let me check this out. Would you become a Knight of the Round Table if you were able? Okay, if you were able, we got 33% saying yes. We got 33% saying no, and 33% saying yes, but I refuse to joust. Incidentally, I haven't voted, but I'm actually myself in the yes, but I refuse to joust category. But apparently, I can't vote in my own poll, so there's that. I don't think I want to joust, but the idea, the concept of this idealized civilization is very appealing to me. I like the idea of real justice. I like the idea of this code of ethics that is expressed. But in the stories, Arthur comes to the end of his life, and he comes to the end of his life in the worst possible way you can imagine. His enemies have conspired against him. They've managed to get a bastard son that they've brought up to be a rival to his kingship. And what he really wanted to do with this position of king was not to establish a hereditary kingdom. What he wanted to do with this was to divide the power so that the people can be free and they can be happy, and you can have this continuously prosperous civilization under this magnanimous rule of law. And is the rule of law that is supposed to be supreme, the justice and the rule of law that's supposed to be supreme, not the personage of the human king. So the rise of the son of Arthur, who is a would-be king that is gathering nobility to him and gathering these people together, particularly some of the people that believe in the old gods, the pagans and such, things of that nature. He's going to raise them up and he's going to challenge Arthur. This is an issue. And of course, the story ends with the sword being taken and cast back into the lake, and the lady taking the sword back. And of course, who is it that's doing this? Is Percival. He goes and he has to get rid of the sword. It has to be Percival, incidentally, that gets rid of the sword, because Percival is the person that you can actually count on to be genuinely, truly honest. And see, there are these archetypes in the legend that bring out the best qualities of humanity. And you look at these and they tell you stories about themselves and about ourselves, really, whenever we compare in the myth, when we accept it as what it is, a myth meant to teach us lessons. And that's what the best of legends do for us. Now, here's the interesting thing. Whenever Arthur decides that he's going to divide power, we can take this legend and we can take this concept of kingship, divided power, and that once and future king idea. And instead of looking for Arthur's heir to come as a human king, we say that the rule of law is eternal. The king is also eternal. And so if you wanted to become a modern knight of the round table, you might at some point do this. This is the secret of the round table. All right. Whenever you do this and you look down, you're kneeling and you're going to take the oath. You're kneeling at the table and you're looking down at the stone, which is round. And every other knight that's here at the table that is also kneeling with humility, taking the oath to swear service to the eternal king, is facing the other knights of the round table. That's hidden secret of the round table that you didn't necessarily get from English literature class. How does this relate to the garden that I want to produce? Well, I've said it before. The garden that I'm interested in is this actual world garden, the entire thing. And in order to get that golden age, in order to get that world garden, in order to get these things, they exist on multiple levels of dimension. We have the physical, the gross physical level of the dimension. That's what we see and feel around us, this interactive construct of material. We have the emotional level, how we think about this on right brain thinking side of things, the emotive side and intuitive side, and then we have the left brain side of things, the raw intellect side, where we operate as well. We want to have the story be consistent on all three levels, so that we have this really truly harmonious garden experience, where all the parts are supportive and reinforcing of each other. Yeah, Mary asked me earlier about what's the gardening relationship. Yeah. it's all about establishing this ecosystem where humans can thrive in an environment that is natural to us. Is ideally, yes, shrubbery. and human thriving in a natural environment means we have to have a system in place by which we interact that is natural, as opposed to contrived, artificial. The idea. I'm not the night of IKEA item number. Yay! Oh, so the idea that we can have such a thing as a civilization with rule of law, without concentrating the power in the hands of a few psychopaths and giving them armies, that's it's encouraging, because the story is there in our culture. And of course, it's not the only story that's in our culture. Of course, there are a whole bunch of different stories that are in our culture that can be drawn upon to give us inspiration for ideas. How can we do things differently? How can we avoid How can we avoid the total destruction of Western civilization, for example? Um, right. Yeah. Really, how do we back away from this situation where we're at seconds from midnight on the doomsday clock? Here we are. We've got a new president-elect here in the United States. Some people are happy about it. Some people not so happy about it. My personal opinion was that was never the issue in the first place, because we're supposed to be the solution, not putting the responsibility in the hands of politicians. It's just we're supposed to be the solution. So, yep, yeah, that's it, Mary. I am suggesting that gardeners take over the role. That's right. I'm suggesting that gardeners who are of the inclination to do so should take the oath of fealty to the eternal King, and work diligently to establish his kingdom. That's what I'm suggesting. Yes, and that is, of course, the original call of man. Is if you believe in this line of things, in the beginning, right? Uh, Man is made to tend a garden. Imagine that. And the more you look at this, were we busy tending gardens, how many of these problems would we be having? We wouldn't be having these problems. Oh, yeah. Okay, let's see. Commoners ruling. Ha! What would the elites do? Well, see, this is the thing. If you're in a position where you have a large amount of wealth, a large amount of land, or a large amount of status, uh, all of these things are capital, and all capital can be used in a free economy to create more capital. So people who are in the elite position already shouldn't be too overly concerned with a greater democracy, simply, or not greater democracy. Let's rephrase that: a greater freedom, because with the greater freedom, they still have the advantages they've always had. The question is, will the people with the greater freedom realize it and take advantage of it? A lot of the time, people don't. A lot of people want to be led. They really do. Ask around. They want to be led. They want somebody to tell them what they should buy, tell them what they should wear, tell them what they should do. Some people are so into being told what they should do, they go off and join military organizations simply so they can be told what to do. Occasionally, people get in trouble. They go to prisons, penal institutions, where they're told everything that they should do and when they should do it. And they get so used to that condition that whenever they get out into the regular world, they don't know how to function. So they eventually commit more crimes so they can be sent back to a place where they can be told what to do. And that's comforting to them. I can understand. I really can. I can understand that person would want to be in a position where they have the comfort of order that's established, regulated, and they can be in that and be safe in that if they choose to be there. It shouldn't probably be the military. But there's a reason why once upon a time we had such a thing as monastic orders, places where people could go, where there's an order and a structure and a way you can live that will allow you to take a step away from this hectic world where nothing makes sense, everything's a jumble, and you can find that order and structure that you need to find your calm and your sanity in your life. We used to have that. We don't really have that so much anymore. Now, in order to find that kind of peace, we have to carve out spaces in the modern world for that sort of peace, for us to be able to enjoy that. And of course, gardens are a wonderful way to carve out that space, that meditative exercise of getting out there, getting in touch with nature, and encouraging the forces of life, encouraging more life to exist. I mean, really, that work of creating edges where energy exchanges between living organisms, the plants, the fungi, the bacteria, the small creatures, insects, mollusks, larger creatures, all the way up to the human being that's taking the abundance that this complex system is capable of producing. whenever we produce these opportunities for life, we create opportunities for, um, well, how would I put this? For consciousness, really, to express itself in different ways. That would probably be the best way to put it. Um, if we were going to be defining the essence of creativity and the essence of creation itself as being consciousness being, then whenever you are increasing life probabilities, life possibilities, you're increasing possibilities for consciousness to be. So, um, yeah, there's a certain spiritual component to that. So this is kind of where the two intersect. Mm, yeah. Well, Mary's using talk to type. If you want to have a spiritual experience, there's a couple of ways of doing it, right? You can go on extreme fasting. Actually, this is not right. You shouldn't go on extreme fasting. You shouldn't go on extreme fasting to have the spiritual experience. You shouldn't take drugs to have the spiritual experience. You shouldn't go on journeys to faraway lands to have a spiritual experience. You shouldn't go talk to gurus about deities with strange names that you can't pronounce to have a spiritual experience. Instead, you should seek the spiritual experience. And if these other things happen to occur along the way, then so be it. But that's not the essence of seeking the spiritual experience. John says he likes mushrooms; they work pretty good. Um, I don't know. I've never been affected by hallucinogens myself. I've been exposed to them, but I've never been affected by them. The thing that they do, I have access to already, so it's kind of fun to be me. My mother took some acid before I was born, and I now have the ability to permatrip all the time, which is kind of cool. Also, kind of weird. Hmm. Yes, because sometimes the spiritual comes to you. Well, that was what it was like for me when I was little too. Whenever I was in a really emotionally charged state, it felt like it was flowing, and things happened. It got weird, and couldn't explain it. It's like the I had to go and learn a whole lot about this, and of course, yeah, I've been talking about it more. I did an interview with an Indian fellow a couple of nights ago. I We were planning on doing I think we were planning on doing the interview yesterday. And it was okay, yeah, it was Sunday, I think. That we did the interview. And it was we'd set this up. He had this fellow's name is Gino Divikar. Or I can't pronounce his name properly. I was going to ask Mary to drop a link to the guy's channel, and then I realized that she's probably not in a position where she can do the links. Give me just a second. This fellow is he's Indian. He's from India, living in Texas, and is building a channel where uh, he talks to people from all different backgrounds to kind of get an idea for the spiritual experience from their points of view. So this is it's fun because I've had the opportunity to talk to people of all different walks of life throughout the course of my life, um, often candidly, privately, and talk about the things that you usually don't talk about with even the people that you're neighbors with, much less strangers. And part of the reason for it is because I would enter these conversations from a perspective without judgment. So I really want to know what it is that people believe, why they believe it, what the experience that they have had or they're having or they expect to have is, because it will inform my own experience. Because I'm critically aware that there are things that I do not know. And there are things that, from my perspective, my investigation is never going to reveal to me from my own investigation. And I'm going to have to rely upon somebody else to tell me something at some point along the way, even if the only thing that they're telling me is what my own face looks like because I can't see it. Right? If this is the only thing I can get from talking to somebody else, it's a poor exchange. But at least I'll know what my own face looks like if I communicate with other people. But I'm never going to know from my own perspective what I look like, right? So, talking with other people, holding the candid conversations. I never had one before, really, with somebody who was Hindu. So this was a kind of an opening up of the door to how are how's your culture's experiences and the way you interact with this thing that we call spirituality. What is that like? And so I had this interview, and he recorded it. Oh my goodness, he changed the did you change the thumbnail? I think he changed the thumbnail. The first thumbnail was very scary looking. Let me get the link address here. There we go. I'm going to put the link for this in. Oh, Mary already did. Okay. So there's the NDE experience, and it's just describing the near-death experience, and then relating to um, spirituality. What my understanding is based to what the Hindu understanding is, and the places where they come together, which is really kind of interesting. Mary says I'm slow. Thank you, Barry. Thank you for your noticing. And the amazing thing is, she did that with a smartphone, with thumbs and things, and a screen that you have to. I can't handle. I can't handle one of those. It won't work for me. Hmm. Anyway, so we're talking about this stuff more, and part of the reason is, in order for me to be honest about how I get information whenever I'm talking about this is the way you put together a forest garden. Where does the information come from? How do I know that this is the way it works? Part of the way I know it works is because of reawakening into that spiritual understanding. The teacher is teaching me directly, if that makes any sense. And it's something that you're going to see an awful lot more of in the world as we go forward, because we are in very, very interesting times, guys. Very, very interesting times. There was this divide, moment of choice, right? Do we go down the path of destruction, or do we go down the path of creation and rejuvenation? And a lot of people are taking the path of creation and rejuvenation. A lot of people are taking that path of I think I would like to be in Camelot, right? I think I would like to be a member of King Arthur's court. Well, we don't have the physical human King Arthur. We have the eternal king now, right? The eternal king. The power is divided amongst men in a brotherhood in service to the eternal king, right? Destruction Art Studio says Forest Garden and Spiritual Understanding. Tell me more. I would love to tell you more. We're talking, of course, about bringing on a golden age, about the eternal garden or the perfect garden. And perfect is a misnomer. There is no such thing as absolute perfection per se. Well, there is. Actually, there is. The totality is absolute perfection. We typically only see a tiny portion of it. To that effect, we have to remember that we all have our own perspectives. And because we all have our own perspectives, we will also have our own preferences. And I posted something about this a couple of days ago. It was a response to someone saying that there was a gift of beauty. And it was the gift of beauty is like, people look at you and they find you desirable. They look at you and say, oh, they have such good skin, or the nice symmetrical features, or whatever it is that people find beautiful at the moment, right? And I thought about that. I said, actually, the real gift of beauty is not that people find you beautiful. The real gift of beauty is one that anybody can accept, and that is that the universe, everything that is created, was created beautiful. Beauty is in the integral design, and the gift is being able to see it and appreciate it. So if you have the ability to see beauty, if you have eyes that have been trained to see beauty, then you can see beauty. If you have eyes that have been trained to see good, you can see good. But if you have the reverse, then you see ugliness, and you see evil. And the choice of what you choose to see in the world often is going to color the experience that you ultimately have, because it's a resonant feedback. Whatever you take in, you consume, you make part of yourself. You're going to see this in the world. So it goes back and forth and back and forth until eventually you're in a paradise or you're in a hell, and that's in the real physical sense, in the real present here and now. People destroy their lives with feeding themselves on garbage, but in all different manifestations. You can eat bad food and destroy your life because you're not having a good diet, and you can consume bad information and bad mental programming and teach yourself bad habits and can continue to replicate the bad habits in your life to make sure your life are wrecked. Golden ratio and Fibonacci sequence. I try not to focus on that too much, but yeah, you're going to see it everywhere. Whenever you open up, well, you'll see that in the complexity of the patterns, because it's always iterations of everything that can possibly be, and there's infinite combinations, or seemingly. If they're not infinite, then I don't know, but I but I don't need to know. This is the great thing about it, because I can look at a portion of everything that's happening and see the patterns that are unfolding and realize what's happening here. And what's happening in the soil, what's happening at the root levels, is we have the accumulation of the materials of life and the possibilities of life. And whenever there are more possibilities of life and more materials of life, there is more life. When there's more life and when there is more complexity of life or diversity of life, then it begins building upon each other in, yes, a kind of an exponential sequence. At first, it's just, we can let's take this place where we have desert, right? No life. Somebody's been here before and they've plowed the soil, they've broken it up. The organic matter is oxidized, so there isn't a whole lot of carbon in the soil. It's mostly dirt. The water is dried out. The bacteria have maybe encysted. If there are any of them surviving, they've encysted. That means they've formed a hard shell around themselves and they've gone dormant. And the hard shell is supposed to protect them because their nucleonic sequence, their DNA, could be degraded if they're exposed to these harsh environments too long, and if that ever happens, they're never going to revive, and they're just dead. Okay, so we have all the life. The seeds are dormant. There may be, like in the case of the desert out west in New Mexico, we could have brine shrimp that are sitting there that are also dormant, sitting there in the sand, in the dirt, in the dry, arid desert, waiting. And then whenever the rain comes, that's whenever everything germinates. That's when everything grows, everything bursts out. You have this brilliant burst of life for a moment. But the water stops. There's not enough organic matter produced in that brief burst of life to really stack up to create a reservoir, so it oxidizes away, and the wind blows it, and you continue to have desert. The thing that changes this is whenever another organism enters into the ecosystem and goes, okay, I'm going to do something that's going to make this ecosystem better for me. And they go and they put their complexity to the ecosystem. This could be a beaver coming along going, oh, let's grab that juniper over there. Let's grab that cottonwood over there. And it starts putting them down in the lowlands where occasionally the water accumulates and it starts building up a dam. Yeah, that's the smell that Mary says that explains the smell in the desert. If you've ever been out in the desert in New Mexico and you smell that smell of death, that is what it is. It's the brine shrimp. Whenever the rains come, they come to life and they procreate, and then it dries up again. They die and they rot, and it smells horrible in the New Mexican desert whenever that happens. But that's what it's from. Anyway, fertilizer. If you could get it in a place where you could have it maintaining moisture so that life can continue. So beaver comes along, builds a dam, causes the water to accumulate behind the dam. Water starts settling down into the aquifer. Water starts staying in the soil on a regular basis. The water in the soil provides the opportunity for microbial life. It provides the opportunity for fungal life. The fungal life and the microbial life start propagating, and they process that organic matter in a couple of different ways. One, they store the organic matter, and two, they store water. Amazingly enough, a lot of the water that is in your soil, a lot of the water that's in the system is stored in living organisms. So one of the things that blew my mind whenever I realized it is like, where's the water? You look out in the forest, you walk by and you see an area of forest. It's growing naturally. Nobody's tending it. It has the rains that fall, and that's all it gets, right? Nobody's going out there and irrigating water for some reason. Even whenever you've got a drought, this forest survives. What's going on? Well, it's that organic matter that's banked in the soil, all the life that's in that organic matter that's also holding on to water. Destruction Art Studio says, I'm from the swamp. Well, okay, yeah. So having water is not a problem down there in the swamp. Now it's what's going to come up out of the water and grab you when you aren't looking. It's an entirely different problem. There's too much life going on here. All right, but for people that are in other areas, like in desert areas, places that have been over farmed, we've got depleted soil, and there's not a whole lot of life in it. And the thing that we have to do is start working on building that process of life back up. And of course, there's things that work against it. The agricultural model. Yeah, I can't talk. The agricultural model has us trying to get high yields. So lots and lots and lots and lots of food right out of the system as quickly as possible. Plant annual seeds, hit it with the fertilizer, make sure we kill the bugs so the crop survives, and then we get all that food together, we haul it up or put it all on the truck, we cart it off to the market, and the people in the cities get fresh produce. Everybody's happy. This is the agricultural model. It's the mass model of farming. It's the way the Western world operates, but it has some problems. First off, whenever we tilled to make the seed bed to plant the seeds, we destroyed our organic matter. We already know that that's going to reduce the amount of moisture in the soil, reduce the amount of overall life in the soil. This is true. But also, whenever we reduce the overall amount of life in the soil, those bacteria and those fungi that were necessary to take the water and also the micro and macronutrients that were available in the soil and bring them to the plants in the natural system, they're destroyed. So they don't exist. The only way the plant's going to get it now, the nutrients that it needs, is if you artificially add that. You're going to have to add the water artificially with irrigation. You're going to have to add the fertilizer with irrigation. And the fertilizer, being water soluble, goes right down through the soil, out into the aquifer, into the ocean, creating a dead zone. So this is the reason why I have a massive dead zone in the oceans, because we have to artificially fertilize soil that is not alive because we killed it with our agricultural practices. So yay. So yeah, if you're in the swamp, if you're down there in Louisiana, you're seeing those dead zones. You know, why in the heck do we keep on having these massive dead zones where we have algal blooms? They'll get big, and then whenever they die, the decomposition sucks up all the oxygen really rapidly, and everything in the area dies. And then you have an even bigger problem, because now you've got the toxins built up from all of the things that just got killed that are, also having to go through decomp. It's a mess. Yeah, and the dead zones ruin the fishing off coast. You have to go way, way out there to get to a place where you can have a good catch, which means you have to spend more fuel. You have to take longer. You have to spend more fuel. You have to go farther. It's one thing leading to another. It's a chain reaction that started out whenever we did not work on regenerating the soil and building up the life in it. So if we had respect for the life that was in the soil in the first place, then we would have organized our agricultural practices in a different fashion so that we didn't produce the dead zones. Anyway, Mary's saying, I heard a story about a part of the swamp that didn't even have alligators. It had something worse. There's all kinds of crazy stuff you can get into in the swamps. Out in the bayou, you got sharks. Some of those sharks, you just get a nip and you can get a nasty infection from a shark bite. The reef sharks are particularly nasty. The bacteria in their bite will get you, even if it's not a severe bite. You have to go to the hospital if they bite you. Antibiotics. But they've got anacondas, they got pythons, they got crocodiles, they got everything else down there now, because people keep on getting exotic pets and then realizing that they're, eventually that thing's going to grow up to become a big reptile, and so they dump it, and now you've got a breeding population of big reptiles that aren't native to the area running around in the swamps. Yeah, the baby sharks are in the marshes. Yeah. Just because it's a baby doesn't mean that infection is not going to be bad. I mean, it's not good. The bite's not going to be what kills you. It's just the infection later on. If you don't get it treated, that'll get you. Or it potentially can get you. I mean, there's medicine. You can disinfect it. You get antibiotics, you'll be okay. But I watched this in years. I watched with fascination as a guy who's a fisherman goes out and he's fishing for these sharks so he can tag them for the research project. And I was like, wow, suddenly fishing became work because that looks like it's work, like real work, dangerous, hard, and probably not a whole lot of thanks for it. So here we are, 45 minutes in. Let me go check and see if we've got any more people who would be interested. We got 11 votes now. We are at 45% yes, 27% no, and 27% yes, but I refuse to joust. See, I figured I wouldn't mind being a knight of the round table, but the combat requirements are a little bit too strenuous, and I may not be a great combatant, and that's perfectly okay. Most of us are not great combatants, but just because one's not a great combatant doesn't mean that has to be completely bereft of courage. There is such a thing as common courage, and the courage of the common man can accomplish quite a bit if we're courageous in common cause. Anyway, everything you eat in the swamp, even the crawfish. Uh, oh yeah, everything will eat you in the swamp. Oh yeah, especially the crawfish. Are you kidding? My favorite way to get crawfish. Okay, I have a couple favorite ways to get crawfish. Since we're going to talk about crawfish. Now, I'm not a bayou boy, so I don't catch crawfish typically for eating them myself. I like to catch them for bait because they are absolutely the best fish bait out there. Well, I mean, depending upon time and presentation. I mean, mid afternoon or midsummer in the afternoon, a nice big fat grasshopper. You just put it on the hook and flip it off the side of the bank, and you're fish on immediately. Crawfish, almost any time, are almost exactly the same way. You rig them up, you put them out there, they'll walk across the bottom for a little bit, and bam, you've got a fish. You got the little tiny soft shells. You could just put them on the hook and just dangle them in front of a crappie. Bang, you've got a fish. If you need food in your belly, bait is the best way to do it, and crawfish are some of the best bait you could possibly get. Now, I have a couple of different methods of getting crawfish. One of my favorite for the soft shell variety is to go wade in the shallows where you've got the rocks. You see a lot of rocks down there in the shallows. You don't want to make too much of a disturbance, but you have your bucket or your basket or your pail or whatever you got, you're going to put them in. Have that standing close by, and then whenever you lift up a rock, look underneath, and you want to do it slow so you don't create a big mud eddy, right? That little swirl of muddy water to obscure the crawfish so you can't see them. But you'll be able to see him, and he's going to be sitting there, right? And his tail is going to be pointing, kind of tucked in underneath him, kind of like whenever a dog's been naughty, and you know how they get their tail up underneath them. Crawfish kind of has that, and he's got his arms out. Now you don't want to just reach up and grab him. What you do is you get your hand behind him, and then you take your other hand and you move it towards him. So he's facing this way, and you move your hand towards him. Your other hand's back here behind him, just sort of cupped. And you could put a cup back here, or a basket, or colander. Go in the kitchen, grab a colander, use the colander back behind him, and you scare him. He's going to go backwards, straight into your hand if you're using your hand, or the colander if you're not really good with your hands. You may not be able to. To be agile with your hand and grab a little baby crawfish like that. But the colander, right into the colander, you scoop them up, and now you get them on the hook. You toss them out there. That's good for your perch and your few bass would be taken that way. Crappie would be taken that way. But yeah, destruction setting ours make chimneys. Yeah, the larger mud bugs they're gonna build up that chimney structure, and then they retreat back in there. And now the larger ones, best way to get them, people talk about using fatback or bacon. But eventually your bacon is going to disintegrate. You need a bait that you can use over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, ad infinitum, for almost forever. And for this purpose, if you go into the bait and tackle shop, you can find the little they're pork rind lures in brine, and you can get the little pork rind frog. Actually, the best one is the long strip pork rind. You get that, take it out of the brine, tie it off on your string, make sure it's not going to come out. You drop it into the water hole where you know you're going to get those crawfish. Let it sit down for a minute or two. Pick it back up, and it's going to have at least one or two, maybe three, four even clinging on to it. You just shake it off into your bucket, the way you get the larger ones. Now you can take those larger ones, you can eat them if you want to. If you're going to eat your crawfish, make crawfish boil with them, it's perfectly fine. But you can also rig them up with a treble hook. So you put one hook back up here underneath the carapace so that it doesn't actually kill it. Take a piece of light gauge wire and wrap it around the body so that it doesn't shrug off. And then the other two hooks are just kind of reclining back. And then you take one weight about a foot or two, like a 1 ounce sinker, a foot or two away from the crawfish. So he has room to move around and walk on the river bottom or lake bottom, wherever you drop him. And then you go ahead and you drop that rig down there so it goes down to the bottom. And then your big cats are gonna, as long as you're in an area where those catfish are migrating, they'll see that crawfish walk along, and in a very short amount of time, you're gonna have a very, 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 very big fish on the hook. And yeah, this is just, you can get a bunch of crawfish and eat a bunch of crawfish, or you get a couple of crawfish and eat a bunch of regular fish, but you have to go fishing after you catch crawfish. That's probably a little bit all the same operation, really. It's part of the afternoon. We're going to come home with dinner, and everybody's going to get to eat. So that's good. Anyway. Mama love to eat them. That's right. Crawfish. Yeah, some other things that country folk eat that the city folk are like, well, I don't know about that. Squirrels, for example. Yeah. Put a female full of eggs in a fish tank. The bearers may, but yeah. The problem with trying to tank raise crawfish is because tank raise crawfish is they will cannibalize if you can get them enough space where they have like little runs where they're not looking at each other, and you get them around like that, and also if you can circulate water from a tank where there are females with eggs. Like whenever you've got the females with the eggs, they're fresh hatched babies. There's a pheromone that they release that inhibits the cannibalistic urge. So if you've got brooding females and you're circulating the water from a brooding female into the population, and you've taken precautions so that the rest of the population doesn't have direct line of sight to each other, you can reduce the instances of cannibalism, and you can actually get away with breeding some of your crawfish in a bit greater numbers and get a bigger yield. There you go. So have fun. PVC pipe, like like nested boxes of PVC pipe. You cut it out so they're each crawfish has got a little blind where he's got his space where he can be protected on all sides, like he's got his own little hole, and then you get that pheromone going in their water, so they won't go nuts and eat each other, and then you can get a few more crayfish that way. But that cannibalistic impulse is one of the things that makes growing crayfish in a tank a bit more challenging, because you get exactly the result you have. You'll get a few big ones, but so many of them get eaten along the way. Yeah, if you're breeding, see if you can circulate the water from your brooding females into the rest of the population, and see what the result is. Yeah, hopefully they will have they'll have less of an instance of gobbling each other up, but they still need protection. Otherwise, just because the pheromones in there, if they're in each other's space, it's kind of like whenever you're trying to raise a whole bunch of catfish in one spot. If you put down concrete blocks so they have spaces where they can all duck in and hide, and they're all facing different directions, you can get more catfish in the same space as long as the water's aerated enough for them and you're feeding them enough. Then giving them that ability to not be looking directly at another fish that they're in competition with is lower stress, and they can tolerate it better. Why, thank you. It's actually aquaponics isn't my usual thing. It's just it does relate to the gardening design overall, to use ponds and everything else to add fertility. Aquatic systems produce more fertility than just about anything else you can imagine. Oh my goodness. Anything else we need to talk about tonight? The curious thing about the round table is the world garden. And maybe we're about ready to see a renaissance in the world. Who knows? That might be interesting. Thank you much for joining. I can't talk. I'm running out of coffee. I've got to get back to sorting out this bookshelf. I've been going through before I leave you tonight. I've been going through all of these. We had one time you saw that big line of bookshelves across here. There's about 5 or 6 different bookshelves. We managed to get it down to just these 2 bookshelves, and we haven't gotten everything sorted up and stacked on the shelves yet. But we got rid of most of the junk fiction, and we got rid of a bunch of the round tables. Yeah, there we go. We got rid of a bunch of the. We got rid of a bunch of the duplications of reference materials. Now, a lot of these things that we have here in the leather bound are some of the classics. Like we've got Great Expectations, Little Women, Treasure Island. Over here, I've got in a plastic wrap that I've never opened is a very nice gilt-edged leather bound collector's edition of Darwin's Origin of Species. I think it's actually a fairly pricey book, but it's just sitting up there unopened. just because we just wanted to have a copy of Darwin's Origin of Species on the shelf. But then those are sort of the literary classics. Then we've got about, I'd say, a half a dozen different editions of the Bible up there. Then I've got, let's see, right there is a couple of different collections of Emerson, numerous different foreign language dictionaries, a whole bunch of Taoist classics, a copy of the Quran with Arabic translations. So you have the English and the Arabic, and it's got a pronunciation guide. And I mean, if you had somebody to talk to that spoke the language with this book, you could probably learn how to speak Arabic. It's kind of cool. Yeah. I've shown you before. We've got Tanakh, we've got Torah, Upanishads. Yes, we have the Upanishads. And of course, where is this? Oh, we've got over here also a compendium of New Age cults and religions. So if somebody happens to come trot one out, you'll probably be able to identify it. As far as we did have another one that was supposed to be a compendium of the world religions, but eventually I was like, we actually have all the books of the world religions here. So if you're interested in finding out about what other people's beliefs are, there we go. You can go look it up and go. See what the beliefs are. Oh my goodness, that reminds me. Here we're here in Tulsa, and here in Tulsa, not too long ago. Hoping DDO don't go up. Yeah, no doubt, because Dungeons and Dragons went kind of crazy. Here in Tulsa, not too long ago, they opened up one of the Tulsa City Council members or Tulsa City Council meetings with a prayer or invocation, and it was being delivered by a woman who calls herself, I guess, some kind of a New Age seer something. Pagan-ish. She called herself pagan. But here's the thing. She did an invocation to Medusa. This didn't seem right to me because I happen to have a certain amount of reverence for these mythological traditions that people of the old world had. So the Hellenic gods, I know who they are. I know their stories. I actually respect the value that their stories have. And to see somebody calling themselves a pagan but invoking Medusa seemed very, very disrespectful to me. Now, the people who are Christians are going like, well, they're invoking some sort of weird pagan stuff. That seems disrespectful to them. But you have to understand, Medusa was in life a, according to the legend, a priestess of the goddess Athena. Athena is the patron goddess of the city of Athens, as Greek gods in the Hellenic period. And she was a virgin priestess. Now, Athena is a warrior goddess. And so her virgin priestess, she's a virgin warrior goddess, her virgin warrior priestess are required to maintain their virginity. It's kind of important. I mean, it's more than just kind of important. It's an absolute ironclad rule that they will defend that to the absolute death. Okay. Not just it'd be nice if you avoided, but you will defend your virginity to the death with force of arms if necessary. I mean, if you lose it, it's because you're dead. Period. End of story. So this girl Medusa, who's a virgin priestess, is in the temple of Athena in Athens, and in comes Poseidon, and Poseidon seduces her. And so she loses her virginity to Poseidon in the temple of Athena there in Athens, and Athena is understandably a little bit upset. So she curses Medusa to become what is called a Gorgon. Now, the Gorgons originally were allies of the Titans. They were monsters from the beginning. There's two of the Gorgon sisters that were allies of the Titans and enemies of the Greek gods from the very beginning. And so whenever Athena curses Medusa, her former acolyte, faithless acolyte, priestess, not Poseidon, to become a Gorgon, she turns her into a monster and sends her to live with the other monsters that are the enemies of the gods, because she has become, by being an apostate, an enemy of the gods. Are you with me so far? This is the Medusa that this so-called pagan priestess is supposed to be invoking. She's invoking an apostate, an enemy of the gods is who she's invoking, if you were pagan. But it goes one further, because whenever Perseus comes along, and you'll read this if you read the writings of Apollonius of Rhodes, who resided in Alexandria somewhere around 300 BC, whenever he wrote a few other interesting books, which were read by one Jesus of Nazareth whenever he had occasion to go to Egypt whenever he was a young man. And that was greatly reflected in his teachings, because he talked about these things, including one such thing, which was the Lamb of God slain upon the foundation of the earth, which you only know about if you read Apollonius's work. Jesus mentioned Apollon by name. You just had to make the connection to realize he was talking about a prophet. So in the story of Perseus, this is the Greek version of this. Incidentally, well, we'll get to that later. Perseus is required to go and accomplish a task. The task is required to accomplish is going to be getting the head of the Gorgon Medusa. To this end, Athena gives him a shield that reflects. It's called the mirror of opposition. Would be the divine treasure that's called the mirror of opposition. She gives him the shield so that he can go and using the reflection see the Gorgon to be able to behead her without being turned to stone by her petrifying gaze. So Athena gives Perseus the instruments necessary for him to go and ultimately kill her former priestess, which is the way the story for Medusa ends, with her death. Her head is used to help Perseus and his particular mission, his task that he's accomplishing. And then whenever Perseus is done, like every good person should, he takes the divine treasures and returns them back to whence he got them. So he returns the shield back to Athena, and he gives her the head of the Gorgon Medusa as well. So afterwards, Athena affixes the Gorgon's head to her shield, and the symbol now for Athena is the silver mirrored shield with the head of the Gorgon affixed to it. So whenever you look at somebody that has that like that as a birthmark, they're like, actually, I was born with the mirror of opposition. Metaphorically speaking, I'm a very rebellious, not rebellious, but very stubborn adherent to refusing to believe lies. So whenever somebody's trying to give me a whole bunch of them, I immediately fix that mirror and say, no, I will reflect this. And if it turns you to stone because of your conviction, then so be it. Otherwise, we will try to work this problem backwards and use that mirrored reflection to solve something that would otherwise be insoluble. And so, like I said, there are wonderful lessons that you can get from these stories. But whenever somebody takes this concept of being pagan as an alternative to, say, Christianity, which is the bulk of the worship, most people are Christian around here, and they say, well, I'm going to be pagan because it's not Christian, and it's going to be kind of a in your face, you Christians, but you don't understand anything about the pagan religion. It's really disrespectful on a multitude of levels, and this is what this person was doing. She disrespected pagan traditions, calling herself a pagan, by saying a prayer of invocation to a dead monster. Anyway, perhaps we will enter into a new age of enlightenment where we can have an increase in piety, and people will be able to look at each other's belief systems and appreciate the value that is in them and exchange the value that's in them instead of looking at each other, not being able to see ourselves, but saying to each other, you are doing it wrong, right? You're doing it wrong, though I can't see myself. You're doing say all this Hail Marys. Oh. Well, then there's the Our Fathers. I like the Our Fathers because it puts your focus exactly where it needs to be, right? Yeah, exactly. It's like you're claiming paganism because you hate Christianity. It's like claiming atheism, but it's an act of rebellion, not a genuine belief, right? Yeah. Anyway, guys, thank you ever so much for joining me. Just want to think a little bit about that perfect garden, the golden age that may indeed be on the horizon if we can avoid utter destruction. The possibility that we can rekindle that by seeking a new form of government, a government not of man, but a government of a higher power with a devotion to the principle of law and the understanding that we are all equally bound by that oath to each other and to the eternal King in the holy order of the round table, which is conveniently immediately underneath our feet, and all we need to do to join it is to humbly bow our heads and speak that invocation. Guys, I hope that you found tonight's video informative or entertaining. If you did, you know what to do. I'll catch you next time. Until then, get out there and get growing.